It's a beautiful day. One in which I feel like practicing regression. Regression in regards to, let's say, thought itself. Why not? Because we're sitting here thinking. So, how do we regress through thought? Well, we find out the pathway of origination, and we identify the mechanisms throughout the pathway itself which create that which we're experiencing, which is thought. So let's regress. Let's trace our steps and find out exactly what is at play here within thought itself. So is thought not merely the biochemical reaction within my body, the neural network of my neurons communicating with each other as they themselves scrape to find patterns within reality? And as they form patterns and memory upon this network, in which a certain pathway invokes a sense, does this then not give me thought through this memory which I have of this experience of life? And now that we know what it is that causes thought, what is it that brought about thought itself? What was the first thought? And did the first thing that thought think about thought itself? Or did it think about something other than thought? And how did thought come about? Well, first off, we'd have to imagine a time in which we had the time to think itself. If we didn't have the time to think, then I think we couldn't have thought. So therefore, the time to think itself is the initial cause for thought itself. For without the time to think, we couldn't have thought. So let's go back a little further. I mean, though it seems indirect, and we have to be careful here because eventually all things originate from the same point or expanse itself. And so, I'm just as much relatable to the tree over there in my ability to think through this indirect regressional pathway of things coming into existence or being. And so, depending on how far you go back through this regressional analysis, all things then lose the difference in which they hold right now here in this moment, from the timeline in which we perceive, in which all things then separated their form and became other than what we ourselves are. So, anyways, if we go back far enough, we see that there is, in a sense, this chaotic order of nothingness. And how can chaos be an order? Well, chaos itself falls into an ideal, and as soon as it reaches this peak, chaos itself can then be mapped. And then, in a sense, chaos is then order. And out of this order comes our form. And out of this form comes the ability to think. And then we've thought. And now that we've thought upon thought itself and how thinking came about, we can now think about other things. But why not continue on thought? It's so thought-provoking, is it not? I mean, it's so amazing that out of such a seemingly random happenstance of materialistic order comes this network and this ability to communicate between things, messages, through this pathway. And the pathway in which it takes us to where we're at. It's like traveling on a road. You have the system, the network of roads themselves. And depending on which pathway you take on this road will determine where it is that you end up. You might end up at a dead end, in which truly a dead end is only as dead as those that you take with you to the dead end itself, making it, in a sense, much more lively than other continuing ends if you look at it that way. But depending on the pathway we take, we can, in a sense, find ourselves in different locations. And the same thing is with thought as with is driving your automobile or vehicle on a road. Depending on the turns you take, depending on the road you take, you'll find yourself in a different location, which in this location houses a different environment. The same thing goes for within your mind. As you regress and as you follow a pathway upon a topic, what you find is that this pathway in which you take will determine where you find yourself after you took it. And so there are many relations between both the inner and the outer world. And what goes on with the inner may in fact cause the outer, and what goes on with the outer may in fact affect the inner. And so it's a dual relationship, almost like a yin-yang, where if we can imagine the yin-yang as some three-dimensional spiral that's ascending both upwards and downwards, it's like we see that snake on the staff, where the two snakes are encircling the staff, the central pillar. And the central pillar is the ideal in which they both seek. However, they never attain themselves, each representing an ideal and the opposing faction of where the other is at. Yet, in a sense, though they oppose each other, they chase each other's tail, and they reach and strive for each other. And as they reach and strive for the opposing side, they're chasing that which they can never catch. They, in a sense, create uniformity and balance within, and the central spire presents itself. And whether or not they are both ascending, or whether or not they are both descending, or whether or not one is chasing the other's tail and the other chasing the other's tail, one is ascending, one is descending, we gain the ratio and we gain this spiral, this golden spiral, in which ideals and contradictions actually make up for something which in itself is not contradictory, in the sense that it creates balance and harmony. And in this, it doesn't contradict itself, though in the opposing notion that presents itself, it may seem, in a sense, contradictory in nature. So there you have it. Thought can bring us to many different locations, just as thought can provoke action, and this action can take you to many places which are beautiful, some in which are horrifying, and some in which you'll never want to return. But let's hope that you can continue to find the places which are beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to not only your eyes, but to your mind's eye as well. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey through thought, and may your thoughts be ever in your favor.
Not the guy anymore. I know.
These rooms are like.
But they can be good at the Celtics, dude. What's up? Still LeBron, dude. That was what?
Who won?
Dude, the Cavs killed the Celtics. And they only won by like 13 or 14 points for like the whole game. LeBron could do literally whatever he wanted the whole game. He was just... Where were you jumping? I'm coming on 6, 5, 4, I got you. 3, 2, 1.
This morning, didn't recognize the man in the mirror. Then I laughed and I said, oh silly man.
So what I came to realize is that so much of life is based upon trust within yourself, to do yourself no harm in a sense. And I mean, it's a fine line, because in a way, to grow, we must overcome obstacles and barriers, which in a way does us self-harm. But a hike like this, which contains with it lots of hype over the generations in Angel's Landing, is really no more dangerous than, you know, crossing the street. It's kind of up to your own intention and free will as to whether or not you're going to jump in front of the vehicle that's coming in your direction. So, you know, as you're hiking up something like this, whether or not you go off the edge, in a lot of ways has to do with whether or not you are willing to go over the edge. So, you know, the danger within a lot of things in life has to do with the innate danger of controlling our own inhibitions rather than trying to control the inhibitions of our surroundings. I mean, a lot more people probably slip and fall into a oncoming car than slip off the edge of this. Later.
That's just me, then I proceeded to brush some strangers' teeth, but they were my teeth, and I was waiting.
Check out this freaking slug. It's massive.
Oh, that's them.
Just quivering like some leaf come in the window of a restroom. I couldn't tell you what the hell it was supposed to mean, but it was a Monday, no Tuesday, no Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Saturday came around and I said.
So as you can see, the trailways in which you end up in life are based solely on the pathways you're willing to take. And by doing so, we can end up in some pretty amazing places. Later, y'all.
Who's this stupid clown blocking the bathroom sink?